Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got a Tuesday night slate in the NBA tonight. 5 games to choose from here, Nate. In this one, we're taking a look at the Cavs and the Miami Heat taking each other on in Cleveland. Also got another game video and our player props up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe. Continue to follow along with us all season long. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all the great written content we're talking about here and more. And also use that odds finder tool that we have. You can make sure you're getting the best juice back on all those bets you make in the NBA this season with those U.S. sports books. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this 5-game slate and then talk Heat and Cavs.
Yeah, first meeting of the season between the Heat and the Cavs. Right now, Miami's plus 5.5, and that's a low total as you would expect with these teams at 211. Then the Lakers are on a back-to-back after resting LeBron and AD. Still no official word. They're plus 3.5 now at the Knicks. That's been growing because the Knicks have been off since Saturday. And we don't know on those Lakers guys. The Hornets plus 11 at the Bucks. If you remember in January, earlier this month, they stunned the Bucks at home by about 30. Clippers minus 3 at the Bulls after punting a game at the Cavs. They were red hot before that, and I think that's a third bonus pick for us. But the other game we break down, Pelicans are plus 6.5 at Denver. Denver back home after also on 2 days rest, like the Knicks, after Jokic lost that MVP battle to Embiid. But we're talking Heat Cavs here. And like I said, first meeting of the year, or second meeting, but Miami didn't really show up in that first one at Cleveland. Didn't have Jimmy, Hero, Depot, lost pretty handily. I mean, that was definitely before they got it going, and they're still a little wonky. I mean, and not the most reliable team on the road. Certainly not reliable if Jimmy Butler's going to sit. He's questionable perpetually. It's a quad bruise. I think he can go. It's certainly if he wants to. And with the Heat, it's kind of like I look at with the Warriors. I often talk to you about, Josh. Is like, is this a circled game? Is this a calendar game, if you will? The Cavs are right ahead of them in that 4-5 spot. As it stands right now, beating the Cavs gets them closer to potentially hosting a playoff series against the Cavs. And that is absolutely vital for both these teams, who are just much, much worse on the road versus at home. And I trust Miami when they have their full squad and their full motivation, definitely to cover 5 points. And you look in their last 4 against Eastern Conference playoff teams, 3-1 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, covered in a small loss against Brooklyn. If you count Atlanta, they didn't cover in that one. They lost. Atlanta gave up 70 in the first half. I don't know what to make of that. So, and I mean, you look at the total too, 211. I think with Tyler Hero playing, the Heat offense is a little more reliable. That pace has actually been kind of fast, other than that crazy game against Dallas, where it's an 89 pace. Of course, every time those teams get together, they can't have any possessions. Their defense, which has been number 1 on the road all year, has slid on the road for sure. 119 defensive rating these last 4. And I mean, Cleveland's offense, I'm certainly impressed with at home. Won 5 of their last 6, 121 offensive rating. Donnie Mitchell averaged 28 points per game against Miami in his last 5 with Utah, and then didn't have to play much in this blowout. And the Cavs actually gone over in 7 of their last 10 at home. So I'm leaning a little bit towards over 210, if that's where it is. I mean, I guess the public betted up one. But I also like the Heat to just hang around in this one and maybe win it.
Yeah, I don't really love talking about the total here. I mean, it should go over, man. No one here is going to take an under on 210 in today's NBA anyway. Even when you do have 2 teams that are seen as the 2 best, 2 of the best defensive teams in the league right now. But if you look at some more of the recent sample size, I think the over is a bit of a better play here, just because of the fact that they've both been sort of a little bit less than their sort of average on the season over the course of the last, basically since January, essentially, especially in the locations in terms of away for Miami and at home for Cleveland. I mean, it's really just over the last 7 in general. I mean, they're both a lot, like they're both teams that are in the top 10 in terms of opponent field goal percentage and limiting that. But even in the last 7 or so, they're both in the bottom 15. The Heat all the way down to about 21st. But I think it does come down, like it's a Miami Heat team that if we're going to talk about them, It's actually, if we could avoid talking about Miami moving forward, Nate, then that would be helpful for me because it takes so much fucking research. It takes so much who played in this game. How many games in a row did that person miss before they came back in this game? Was it Depot? Was it Hero? Was it Lowry? Was it Bam? Was it Jimmy? I don't know. So like it took me a long time just to get any kind of take on this Miami Heat team because of how much you have to dive into them. And really like this is what it comes down to for me is the lineups that they have in when they have Kyle Lowry, when they have Bam, when they have Jimmy, when they have Tyler. Really those four guys are the key. When they have those four guys in a lineup, then their net rating in terms of possessions per 100 is all the way up to 7.4, depending if you throw Curtis Martin, depending if you throw Caleb Martin in there, or if you throw Max Strus in there maybe instead of Martin. Either way, you've got those four key guys for you, and you're talking about a net rating of 10 plus 10 or better. In fact, plus 17 and a half in roughly 127 minutes this season for when it's basically four or five of those guys. So if they're in there, then I like them to be able to hang, especially with this Cleveland team who they've been relying on Donnie and Darius Garland to really be the entire, sort of crux of their offense. They have been fast breaking a little bit more as well over the course of their last 10. Both these teams have, not necessarily increasing their paces, but definitely both getting out into transition more frequently. Both teams, in the top 5 in terms of defensive rebound percentage, like they gobble it up. You don't get second chance points on these teams. But, that all that said, like I think the pace is there enough with the way that they'll be playing in transition against each other that hopefully you keep things moving enough to get to that over. But more importantly, even if the game goes that way, I think the half court defense of the Miami Heat has proven to be as good as it needs to be as well, to be able to hang in a game like this, where I'm not saying Cleveland's necessarily like in any way struggling on defense, but they have become somewhat more of like an offensive team to a degree at home, and that's just because of the way that they've been really also getting to the free throw line is a huge part of it, averaging about 4 more free throws attempts a game over their last 7 games at home, or 6 games at home, whatever, right around there, than they have been all season. So attacking a bit more. Obviously, when Donnie Mitchell's in there, they're going to get a few more free throw attempts as well, as he's averaging like 9 so far. So I think there's some over stuff to consider with the sort of waning defense. I think I don't love even betting on this game necessarily, like I said from the jump, but I would prefer to take Miami at plus 5.5 in a game where like I still think they're capable of handling teams on the road. It's not like they're that. I mean, they are better in terms of the record at home so far this season, but I mean, when you look at the stats just in the month of January as well, it's a little bit more close to the same in terms of what they're doing at home and on the road. And I think this is a good spot for them to be able to cover 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's still a little brother. And I mean, they've won 5 of these last 6 at home, but really haven't faced full teams. I mean, the Clippers, like I said, punted. The Suns without anyone. The Bucks without Giannis. They lost to the Dubs, who rested their entire starting lineup, which was just a weird one. But then before that, lost to Brooklyn and Toronto at home. They're 4-4 against the spread their last 8 at home. And strangely, not even a good record at all with a rest advantage. 4-8 against the spread. And they're coming off a blowout against the Clips and a lot of rest lately. Miami, of course, wonky rest because we don't know who's in and out. But I do look at Bam dominated the matchup last March, 30-17 with no Jared Allen. I think he's still, the way he's playing right now, wins that matchup. And Hero was a pretty efficient 22 points off the bench to get Miami that win. He missed this earlier one. I think those two guys and their ability to work off each other will get Miami the win if Jimmy Butler plays. And that's always the caveat that we say, when a guy like Jimmy or Jokic is questionable, like maybe wait until we get that final injury report.
And that's always the key, and that's the annoying part about betting on the Heat. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit wonky with the lineups as they have been all season. So you definitely want to see if Jimmy's in there. I think he's a huge part of it. I think he's a huge part of being able to get to the over as well. To be honest, I know what he does on defense, but right now, also, especially the way that Hero has been struggling since he came back from injury, roughly like 7-8 games ago. He's been struggling mightily, shooting 40% from the field, 23% from 3, not even making 2 threes a game right now for Hero. And if he's going to continue at that rate, then you're going to need Jimmy Butler to go to the line like 12 times to get to the over the way that he has been out of late. So hopefully he plays for that over and for Miami to cover. And if he doesn't, I don't feel nearly as comfortable about any of the things that we have said in this episode. So I think it's really crucial to obviously check on what he's doing. And that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue continue to follow along with us. Also got another couple videos up for you today per usual. Until we see you next, happy betting.